Hi there. My name's Jessica Crow. I am the founder of Apogee and the host of Change Leader Insights. And I am really excited because I have Jenny Lavey here with me today. Jenny is a dynamic HR leader with over 20 years of experience cultivating joyful workplaces that drive tangible business success. She is amazing. We've become friends over the past, I don't know, we met maybe last year sometime through another person who'd been on the podcast, which is super fun. But Jenny and I are going to talk a lot today about change fatigue, the disconnect between what leaders expect of employees and change. We'll dive into that in a minute. But first, Jenny, tell us your origin story. Like, how did you get to where you are today, the name of the company that you founded and run today? Give us the whole shebang.
Okay. Well, first of all, I feel like whenever we get together, we just chat and chat and chat. So you may have to cut me off at some point and tell me to.
I love it. No, we're going to do it. We're going to do it.
Yeah. So corporate HR for 20 plus years and all different industries, manufacturing, healthcare, tech, retail, all the things. And there was just a moment in time where I felt a very tangible misalignment. It was after COVID, and all of a sudden it just felt like constant, going back to change, right? Constant change, a hamster wheel, and people were kind of the byproduct or a second thought to the rest of the business. And the reason I got into HR is because, I like people. I like working with people. I like bringing out the best in them. I like helping managers, develop and lead their people. And it just felt, I still can remember, I had a visceral reaction to something and I was like, okay, it's time for me to go.
Totally.
And I've been thinking for several years, I had been thinking about maybe going out on my own. And my mom had her own business when I was growing up. So I did see what it was like to have that.
Yeah.
And so I'd been thinking about it. And I had actually brought a friend of mine over that I'd worked with at a previous company. I brought her over to my current company.
Yeah.
And so I felt terrible. I was like, oh God, I have to tell her. Yes. And she had been there for 6 months or something. And so I called her and I was like, I just can't do it anymore. It's time for me to go. Here's what I'm going to do. And she goes, I'll join you. And so the two of us started Rise HR together. Yep. And it's shifted from we've always had the same thought, and the same mission, which is to really help small and medium-sized businesses, right? With all their people stuff. But at first, we see a big disconnect with especially frontline leaders, like those people that move from individual contributor into a leadership role for the first time. They usually don't have any training. They were very good in their previous role. Now they're thrown into something they're just not familiar with. They may not want it,
right?
So now they have this team. They have to lead all these people through change, through uncertainty, through, performing, all that kind of stuff. And so we wanted to do leadership development for that group, that tier of people. And because a lot of times you'll see the executives get it, right? You'll see they get coaches and things like that, but you don't see a lot, at that lower level in the organization.
Yep.
And we put it together and nobody really bit, it was just like, okay, great. You're another leadership development, whatever.
Right.
But what we did get is a ton of people asking us for HR help. Hey, our HR team is lean. We need help. We need strategy. We have, we've got people that do the day-to-day, but we need somebody to help us guide our HR department. A project, we need somebody to help us redo our performance management.
Yeah.
We have an investigation, those kinds of things were coming our way. And so we were like, all right, this is it. So that's what we started.
I love it. Yeah.
We pivoted. And it's funny. We still do the leadership stuff, and we are going to launch something next year that will be for leaders. And I feel like we have a little bit more information now to make that especially, very good for the small businesses that we're really focusing on. So, they might not have a huge team. And so we're going to tweak it a little bit and make it more applicable. But yeah, so that's what we do. We do a lot of fractional HR project work, and we call ourselves HR in your pocket. So you can call us and we'll walk you through stuff.
I love that. But there's so much demand for that too, especially with small to mid-size. It's more affordable, I would imagine, than having a full-time person, especially when there's ebbs and flows in the project work. And then having someone like yourself, you're not going to be paying these big consulting firm prices, but you're going to be getting big consulting experience because you've been doing this for 20 years, right? Probably more than some of the associates who are working at the big consulting firms and getting, right? You're like, okay, how much am I paying for how many years of experience does this person have? So cool. Well, good. Yeah. And so you've seen a lot of change. You've been through it. You've helped teams through it. And I think What makes this conversation really exciting is that from the role of the HR business partner, because you're in that role of supporting leaders in the organization. And oftentimes, and what I've sort of discovered over the years is that the HR business partner often is in that position to implement the changes, to
Yep.
lead what's happening, or, in a support role. But let's talk a little bit about, I mean, obviously COVID and then the adoption of digital collaboration tools and AI, like change is happening at an insane rate. But like what's your take on what you're seeing from during COVID to now, and like the whole concept of how quickly change is moving, and what should their expectations be in this new reality?
Yeah, it feels a little like whiplash.
Uh-huh.
With COVID, obviously we all had to shift overnight, but there was I think a lot of it is there was a reason, right?
Yeah.
Like there was a reason for the change. Everybody knew it. Everybody was clear on it. And there was a lot of communication around it. I mean, we're touching base like every day, right?
Yeah.
And then most changes I see in the organization are not that intentional, or
Right.
at least not communicated down to the rest of us what
Right.
the intentions behind the change are. And you're not checking in as much and you're not communicating as much.
Yeah.
So when COVID was over, in air quotes, right? When
Right.
COVID was
Right.
over, and everybody was, come back to the office, come back to the office. There was a lot of, you're disrupting everybody's life again. Come back to the office. And
Mhm.
it was like 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, and all the protocols and things like that. And people were starting to just get exhausted.
Yeah.
So we saw more and more burnout. We saw people just at their max limit. We saw good performers who weren't able to perform anymore. It was like that bucket, that empty bucket that gets filled with water, filled with water, filled with water, and then
Yeah.
it's overflow. And it's like, can't do any more here.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that. And there was what felt to, whether this was the intention, I'm sure it wasn't the intention. And I'm sure there were reasons behind the changes, but what felt to the organization or the people I supported was change for the sake of change.
Right.
And
Right. It's
people don't
continuous
have,
improvement. You're like, okay, this
yes,
wasn't really that
yes.
broken before. Yeah.
Exactly. And the thing is, it's like we're all doing just fine. We were doing fine. We were delivering, right? So why are we changing this? And there's not a good reason, story, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm to your point too, when you had that experience of COVID and everything was changing quickly and there was a lot of understanding around it and good communication and check-ins, and then you're still keeping that same pace, but you don't have the same clarity, communication, understanding. That's a problem in itself.
Yeah.
But there is that whole like change for the sake of change, right? Like because
Mhm.
we're in, for better or worse, like capitalistic country and growth and improvement and all of those things, those are not bad things. Those are good. That's what the economy needs that type of thinking. And there's a point at which, like, what is the trade off here we're making by continuing to refine, improve, change? We've got all these employees, they need work to do. I mean, I don't know how to solve for that, but I do
Mhm.
know that there is a big disconnect between, okay, I'm a someone in a decision-making role, and now we're asking people to change. But let's talk about like the disconnect that happens there, because usually the decision makers, they're spending a lot of time thinking about the change, right? And then they're asking people to change quickly. Like, what's your experience either having that be something you were a part of or supporting clients now? Can you tell us a little bit more about that dynamic and what you would recommend to leaders who are in the decision-making role for the
Yeah.
future?
Yeah. Well, I think anytime you have authority or you're in the position of you're the one driving the change, obviously it's a lot easier, right?
Hmm.
Because you feel like you've got ownership of it, right? Or you have some control over it. But when you are at the other end, you might feel like you're just being dragged along and you're not sure why.
Hmm.
And what I found was usually leaders had been having these discussions for 3 months, 6 months, whatever. They'd had the time to, object, argue, ask questions,
Hmm.
maybe tweak things, right? So they'd gone through all these iterations of the change. They finally were like, this is what we're going to do. And then they launch it to the rest of the organization and they want adoption. And the problem is, and I've had so many leaders say to me, I just can't understand why they won't get on board. They need to get on the bus or get off the bus, right? And I'm
Right.
like, you have been thinking about this for 6 months or a year or 3 months, whatever. And they have not. They have not
Right.
had that time to process. They've not had that time to ask questions. So they are hearing this for the first time. So taking leaders back to like, you got to put yourself in their shoes a little bit.
Yeah.
And I know it feels like you have maybe repeated the same message over and over, but you have to. You have to do that. You
Yeah.
have to go to where they are and help lead them through. One of the things we used to use at one of my former companies, we used Gallup
Yeah.
products quite a
Yeah.
bit. and it was the followers' needs and to follow a good leader, and especially through things like change. But you need trust, compassion, stability, and hope.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know that any of those things were demonstrated in any of the changes, right?
Right, right. You're like, we intellectually understand this, but are we doing it? Are we walking the talk?
Yes.
Probably not. Unfortunately,
Yes.
right? Like that is the reality.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, so it can be super frustrating if you're on the receiving end of that. And I mean, I think about like even with my kids, my youngest daughter would get so frustrated if plans would change.
Yeah.
And like we all have a different capacity for it. And some
Yeah.
people are like, let's do this. They're the champion, right? But then there's the other people that they have very like strict routines and they don't veer off their path. And they
Yeah.
might not even take a different, route to work. So
Yep.
it's gonna be more difficult for those people. So what's the plan, right? What's the
Yeah.
plan to get them through?
I wish there was like a silver bullet answer to this too, because there isn't, right? Because of
Yeah.
all the it's just human beings are complex. We're on a continuum, like you say, about our tolerance and readiness for changes. And then you layer in the fact that there's not just one change happening in the workplace. It's like big changes, but then all these insidious little changes that happen all day long because somebody changes their mind or is in a bad mood or new
Yeah.
information comes in, right? And so it's just a lot to balance and deal with. And I guess kind of what I'm hearing from this, it's like there needs to be some sort of collective pause and like processing moment, whether it's on the behalf of the decision makers, but certainly with the individuals who are being asked to do something differently. Like there needs to be a little soak time, right? A little
Yeah.
idea,
Yeah.
a little marinating around it, and then you figure out the way forward. I was on a podcast last year and the host was like, give me an example of a company that's done change really well. And I was unfortunately stumped. I was like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yes.
Huh. And so he gave some examples, but I was like, of companies that had successfully transformed. But that wasn't to me. I'm like, that could have been painful as heck while you're going through that, right? It could have
Yeah.
sucked. It could have been lots of attrition and all these things. So, like, our definition of success, and like, I was thinking about the process and he was thinking about the end result.
Yes. And
And
I'm
I think
always
it's just
thinking about the
hard.
people, right?
Yeah.
Like
And the people, right.
yeah. So
Obviously. Yeah.
but I think you bring up an interesting point because when those leaders are in that room, they have to think about what's our goal for the change?
Yeah.
Like besides the actual change, it's like how do we want it to shake out? Are we okay if there's attrition? Are we okay that people are
Right.
upset? And I think honesty is so critical. And I was listening to your podcast and somebody else said it too, but just say it. Just say what, I know this is going to suck. This
Yep.
is why we're doing it. You get 48 hours to bitch. Let's just
Right.
bitch about it.
Yeah.
And then we're going to move on.
Yeah.
So, but we do need that time. You have to grieve something to move on to
Yep.
something.
Yep. That is absolutely right. There's a loss involved, right? And then
Yep.
people like they're doing their jobs, they think well in the moment. And then suddenly it's like, actually, you're going to do it differently when you've been getting compensated and rewarded for doing the job that you're doing the way that you've been doing it. And yes, there has to be some level of grief and space for that complaining, right? There has to be a little bit of that. But I think you went to an event and you saw someone speaking who's an author too, and she talked about like complaining in the workplace. Like, of course, there's going to be some, especially when change happens. But there was some data point that you shared with me earlier around like how much time people spend complaining. Isn't it like 2.5 hours? Yeah,
Two and
tell
a
us
half
about this like
hours per day.
complaining conundrum that happens at work.
Yes. Cy Wakeman was the person that I saw. She
Yeah.
does a lot of work with healthcare and she works with organizations on change and on systems and improvement and all that kind of stuff. So she did some research on this and she found that the average professional spends 2.5 hours per day in drama. So that includes complaining, venting, ruminating,
Yep.
like all of those things. So the water cooler, oh my God, do you believe this? All that kind of stuff. 2.5 hours a day.
Yeah. That's
So
why I love working from home. I'm like, I have nobody to complain to. I'll just
I
ruminate and then
know.
I'll move on. Yeah.
Well, and I will say after that, my husband, he would complain about work and I'm like, here it is.
Yeah.
Here, he complained to me and I'm like, here it is. There's the
Right.
2.5 hours. I'm hearing it. But yeah, I mean, it's human nature to like, convene and we tend to bond over those kinds of things.
Totally.
But you have to put a container around it.
Yeah.
And 2.5 hours. Think about the amount of dollars and wasted time and efficiency, and not to mention just unhappy employees.
Yeah, because misery loves company and
Yeah.
emotions are contagious, and yeah, it's a hot mess in many
Yeah.
places, unfortunately,
Yeah.
because it is human nature. Shame on us. No, I'm kidding.
I know.
It's totally normal, but yeah. We
Oh,
gotta
and you
figure
said
this out.
something too. The guy that said that the companies that had done change well, I would be very interested to hear if they interviewed the people at all levels of that
Right.
organization, if they
That's what I
all
was thinking. Yeah, I'm
yes.
like, yeah, I don't know if
Yeah,
everybody would agree that it went really well. Uh,
yeah.
too funny. Well, so, okay, how can, recognizing that there is this disconnect that change can go. So I had somebody on my podcast last year as well, or maybe it was earlier this year, but
Yeah.
he had been through a change that he thought went well. Funny enough, it was during COVID. And so I think maybe we were all just primed for that type of engagement. But there are changes that can go relatively well, meaning people feel like they've had space to grieve and vent. And maybe it's not a change they wanted, but they're somewhat open to it and they figure it out and it happens, right? I'm sure there's more examples than I could think of and maybe you could think of right now. But how can, if you were to wave a magic wand and knowing that the HR leader or business partner could be a really great resource, an ally for an executive or a change decision maker in the workplace, how would what advice would you give to someone in terms of reaching out to HR for support, or if you are in your seat as someone who's implementing a change, like how would you I guess approach it to make sure you're doing all the things that you and I are saying, gosh, this would be nice if that actually happened. Like what would be like a beautiful story arc for change in the
Yeah.
workplace?
Well, I mean, if I could wave, so I'm going to just go totally like
Do it.
rainbows and unicorns, but
Yeah.
I would have cross-functional teams making
Yeah.
decisions, right?
Yep.
So it's like you've got somebody from finance, and I'm not talking the C-suite. I'm talking people in the business that know what that change is going to feel like, and somebody who can represent the people, and somebody who can, like you need those voices in the room.
Yeah.
So I would do that. And people are not going to like this answer at all because all of this stuff, yes, it takes time and it's cost on the front end, but hopefully it will stop the 2.5 hours a day of all of your employees
Yeah.
complaining. So it'll save you in the long run. But I would say slow down,
Yeah.
slow down.
Yeah.
Because COVID, yes, we had to change and we had to change fast. Majority of changes, we do not need to make that fast. If you're implementing a new system, it does not have to be in 3 months.
Yeah.
We have people call, I had somebody call me last month and said they wanted to do a new performance cycle, like a new system and new performance review plan program for
Mhm.
this year. And they wanted to launch it in a month. And I was like,
You're like,
what's the capacity for change on your team?
yeah.
What have they already gone through this year? Have you been talking about this? But
Thank God you
what
asked
it'll
that
blow up.
question.
Yeah, it'll blow up.
Yeah.
So if you want it to be successful, you have to put that time in.
Yep. And ask those questions. Like, what is,
Yeah.
don't think that comes up in the decision making process very often. How much change can our people absorb at this point? What have they already gone through? What else is happening at the end of the year? This is like crunch time for holidays and kids stuff. Like there's so
Yes.
many factors to consider. And this is why I don't know what your take is on this, but I started Apogee with like a change management framework and this
Okay.
is what people need. But I also thought everybody should have this knowledge base because if it's
Yeah.
just a couple of people who are thinking about the people side impacts that, okay, we're ready to roll this out. Now change manager, this is your job. I'm like, we're going to continue to perpetuate the nonsense that's
Yeah.
happening. Like if more leaders asked that question, can our
Yeah.
people handle this? What are the impacts? Like, and brought the actual stakeholders who were impacted into the conversation. The front end investment, it is going to be
Yeah.
more significant, but you will save
Yeah.
months, millions. Like I have been brought
Yes.
into projects where they did not do that and we had to fix it after the fact. And it completely, like it took triple the time and the money because they
Yeah.
didn't do what you just said.
When you lose your
It'd
best
be,
people, they will leave,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And I think too, and you mentioned this, I think on one of your previous podcasts, the check-ins, you don't just throw it over the wall and say, here it is, like whether you're a project manager or whether you're a consulting firm. And I've seen that happen. And I used to get frustrated because we would have even partners within the business where different departments that would just throw something over the wall and say, okay, take this out to your client team. And it's like, no,
no, no,
let's work together on this. We need your support here, right?
yeah,
This might, because the thing is, if you are still connecting throughout that change, right? You're still having like regular meetings or whatever, then you can make minor adjustments, micro adjustments
Yep.
throughout that period. So let's say there's a new software and it's a huge change and the whole company has to change into this new software. Well, let's say you've got your committee and that committee is working, they're obviously on a team and they have noticed that there's something that is a pain point on their team. They can bring it back and you can start to solve for it before it
Right.
gets to be this huge issue.
And you're so
So
far down, you're pot committed and you've already configured it a certain way. Yeah.
So yeah, you can. I think about I think there was a stat. I heard it a long time ago, but plastic surgery. It was like the difference between a beautiful facelift or beautiful plastic surgery and horrible is like literally like a tiny
Oh
little
God.
millimeter.
Terrifying.
Like I know, right? Maybe I'm a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, if you can do tiny little micro tweaks. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
you're throwing the whole change out, but you can make it more palatable for your team.
That's
And if
so
they
true.
feel included and involved and heard, I mean, listening, hearing them.
Yes.
So
I mean, I didn't come up with this quote, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but it was something like around people. It's not that they don't like change; they just don't like being surprised, right? And
Mhm.
so it's when they feel seen, heard, involved, that does change
Yeah.
their orientation, their willingness to be like, okay, I'm willing to hear you out versus damn you, I don't want to be here. So yeah, there's a lot. There's a big shift. I want to go back to one thing though that you mentioned because I'm curious if this played out, how would this change the way we work? So you mentioned we need to slow down. We need
Yeah.
to slow down. What would happen if that became true, like truly true for an organization? They're like, God, we've got 75 initiatives and only actually like 6 of them are really going to be highly levered and impactful. And like, what will that do to the rest of what will happen? Like, help me think this through.
The way I think about it, I'm reading a book right now, and I cannot remember the name of it. It's like the 5 Pillars of Wealth or something like that.
Yeah. Is
So
it by Sahil Bloom?
I just remember what the cover looks like. It's like got a blue colors and like a funnel. I think it
Yeah,
is.
I think it is. Yeah.
So he said something about, and I think this was an exercise he stole from, or he's like, Warren Buffett might have had somebody do this exercise. So
Yeah.
he said, write down like your goals for the year, right? And so they wrote down like 20 things. He's like, all right, now circle the top 5 things that you want to do, or that you have to do this year. And they circle the top 5. And he's like, he said something like, well, when are you going to work on the other ones? They're like, well, when I have time. He goes, nope, you're not even going to touch the other ones. You're not going to focus on the other ones. They're gone. Erase
Yeah.
them. You're going
Yeah.
to focus on these 5 things. And the thing is, if we put our focus on something, then the job we do, like the success rate of it is so much better, but we
So
forget
much.
that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to share, and this is hopefully it lands, but it's kind of a metaphor. But I just went on this trip.
Amazing trip. Yes.
Yeah, and we did something called a Via Ferrata, which I had never heard of before, but it's like climbing and hiking blended. So you're hiking and then all of a sudden you get to these really rocky parts and you have carabiners that you clip onto like an iron like rope that's hooked onto the mountain.
The
So that
pictures look terrifying, by the way, everyone. It's beautiful, but terrifying.
or so you are attached to the mountain and you're like climbing up the side of the rock. So that's not the important part of the story. The important part of the story is the guide
Yeah.
we had. So my husband and I were so fascinated by him because he was so slow and methodical. And I mean, American, right? I'm like, let's go. We got shit to do. Let's get up this mountain, right? We're going to make we're
A
going to
record time to get up there. Yeah.
time. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm asking him questions like, what's the fastest you've ever done? I mean, ridiculous, right? Meanwhile, it's like,
It's like, look
not,
around.
and it's gorgeous. Like, just be here, just be
Yeah.
present, right? So anyway, so everything he does is very slow, very methodical, almost to the point where I am a little bit annoyed, but I'm also in awe and appreciative.
Yeah.
Because one thing that happens to me, and again, this is going to relate, is I will get fast and careless.
Yeah.
And I talk about this in physical like activities, right?
Yeah.
So if I run a little faster or if I do this a little faster, I'll be, get my goal
Done
faster.
quicker. Yeah.
And then I get hurt,
Yeah.
right? So I'm like, okay, so he is keeping me safe. He is communicating with us. We can see where he is. He's checking back on us. There's 2-way communication here. I know
Mm-hmm.
exactly what's going on. So I know he's going to slow down at this part. I know he might speed up at this part, but the whole thing was just fascinating to watch. And it's like, if we could have that kind of a
Yeah.
thing
That's a
happen in the
great metaphor,
classroom,
actually. I love that
I
because
just
you're
think that,
yeah,
yeah,
slow and steady wins the race, right?
yeah.
And what is it? Like slow is fast and smooth and I don't freaking know, but yeah.
No, but all I know is anytime I try to rush something, it does not end up well. And
Yeah.
I think that I don't think that I don't think I'm an anomaly. I think that that
No.
is, and our culture is so better, faster,
Keep growing,
more,
keep going,
whatever.
change. Yeah. Yeah. And to your
And
point, like he made it up the mountain, you all made it up the mountain safely, confidently,
mhm,
and you hit the objective. And meanwhile, nobody got hurt. Nothing
yes,
crazy happened. That's actually a really good metaphor. And I don't think that it'd be amazing if organizations embrace that mindset of here's the 5 things we have to do. Let's put all of our resources and do this well
yeah,
versus try to do a million different things, see what sticks, have some careless errors, a lot of mistakes, and a very
yeah,
frustrated, employee population. So maybe
yeah.
this is the future. Maybe we'll see that,
I
after this
know.
conversation, somebody out there's going to listen and is like, I'm going to call Jenny and Jessica and talk more about this. And then I'm going to change the org. Like, I'm excited.
Yes.
Hopefully somebody do this and then help us help you so we can write a case study about it.
Oh my gosh, that would be so fun. I love it. Well, and I mean, honestly, if I had my way, it would be 3 things. I really don't think you could
Yeah.
even do 5 things. If you are all
Yeah.
in, and the other thing that
Totally
I see in
agree.
organizations, and I'm curious to see what, because you see a lot of this, but they'll have the 5 goals, but then they'll have 8 mini goals underneath the big 5 goals.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's defeating the purpose.
Defeats the purpose, and it doesn't take into account like all the things that are happening every single day, like little
Mhm.
tiny shifts that just eat away at people's self-control, their
Yes.
resolve, their resilience. It's like think
It's like,
about all of this, the holistic
yeah.
picture here, but we're moving too quick
Yeah.
and yeah, so
Well, and our world is changing so fast. So
yeah.
I'm not even thinking about just like being in the office or at work, right? It's like so many things are changing. Laws are changing daily.
Yep.
Like so many things are changing. Technology is changing so fast.
Yeah.
So you've already got so much going on out here. And I know leave work, leave your home life at the door. That doesn't happen.
Doesn't
It's like
know.
all of it comes with us.
Yep.
And so we were exhausted,
Yeah.
you
Well,
just
and
can't.
vice versa. You could be having so many things going on at home, and then your
Mhm.
capacity for change at work is so the conversation, the thinking around change needs to change, right? From leaders and their expectations of employees, from really fully appreciating that change fatigue is real, from slowing down and then prioritizing on really only those top 3 or 5 things that really matter most and not overcomplicating it with all the sub projects and then the sub projects. So whoa, so many amazing knowledge bombs dropped in this conversation. Jenny, how can people get in touch with you? You mentioned you specialize small to mid-sized organizations, but I'm sure you take any conversations. What's the best way that they can get in touch with you?
They can find us at risehumanresources.com. They can find me on LinkedIn.
Perfect.
We are on Instagram. I think it's rise_human resources.
Okay.
Actually, we have a podcast called WTF is Business Casual.
I love that. I love that.
It's a lot of these kinds of conversations,
Yeah.
actually. We get
Yeah.
into all kinds of discussions around, like the most recent one that is coming out this week actually is about meetings and waste in meetings.
So much.
And it's WTF because we like to cuss and well, I like to cuss. She doesn't. My business partner is pretty straight, but and we have fun about it. So we
Oh,
joke.
I
We love.
love that. I'm gonna listen just for fun because I am sure it's a great conversation. And that is a good topic too, because honestly, WTF with meetings. Again, I love working from home for that reason. Like I don't have to go sit in. There's value in being in person. There's value in having meetings, but man, do we overdo it as a
Oh yeah.
corporate world? Like, oof, double
Yes.
when your calendar's double or triple booked, you're like, this is a problem. This should be
Yeah.
a problem, and I don't need
Mhm.
to be in the room
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
any of these.
We were like, I think this might be a hot button because it comes up all the time. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Meetings and PowerPoint. I wish PowerPoint was never invented. That's my like number one. I think it kills all change. I think it makes
Yes.
humans. That's why we spend 2.5 hours complaining. No, I'm kidding.
Well, it's not dynamic, right? It's in a box. And guess what? Talk about change. People change, things change, circumstances change.
Yeah. And then you want these gold-plated slides that just
Yes.
talked about what happened, 4 days ago. So anyways, yeah, Ginny, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for the conversation. I'll include links so people know how to get in touch with you. And then, yeah, thanks again for coming on the show and sharing your insights with the Change Leader Insights community.
Thanks for having me.